This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in places that could expose you to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, their US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
So I'm going to have to go on a little rant now. Pep Guardiola, what have you done? Why can't we just play players in their natural positions anymore?
I'm sorry, you're a disgrace, man. You're an absolute disgrace. You're the epitome of Brexit ball football and home country bias, and you need to get out. Go play for West Ham. No offence, West Ham. It'd be actually great for you. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Social Media Derby. How you doing, Jonty? You all right?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. Not too bad. A pretty good weekend of football.
Yeah, it was decent. I think it kind of lost steam at the end, though, didn't it? Like it felt like there was the excitement. Like it started. I think there was loads of excitement before the City game, hoping that City were going to have a bit of a flop. They proceeded to batter Burnley, and then then it kind of the vibe dropped a bit, and then I think the Arsenal game got with the delay and everything because of the ticket stuff. One of my friends went to the game and she told me that they had serious problems getting in, but luckily she went in a bit earlier to watch the England game or whatever. But apparently their ticketing system just completely fell through, so the match got
Tottenham
delayed.
Game, something happened with the water as well, and they
delayed Brentford
kickoff at the beginning as well.
Yeah. So I feel like it really caught steam with the Brighton game and a few of the 3 o'clock kickoffs, and then the late kickoff for Newcastle. And it wasn't. None of our teams really contributed to any excitement this weekend. I think it was all round kind of like exciting in other areas. But yeah, before we start talking about our teams, I think we have to approach the elephant in the room, which is just how many predictions went up in absolute flames and make me look like a total after last week's podcast. To read them out, I said Newcastle would slip out of the top 6, and I said Tonali would be the flop of the season. They battered Villa 5-1, and Tonali was one of their best players. To make that worse, I said Villa would be 5th with Emery, and they didn't look great in that match. Although Diaby did look good, and Watkins looked all right. But Pau Torres, who we also called out as a good signing, was shocking in that match as well. So
Konsa was horrible too.
That was a stinker. What else did I say? I said Wolves would be absolutely rubbish and would go down, and they played us off the park for the whole of the 90 minutes yesterday. I said Jurriën Timber would be signing of the season, and he looks like he's done his ACL and probably won't play another match. We shouldn't laugh because I love him, and I'm praying he doesn't have an ACL for your sake as well as mine. But I basically couldn't have got more wrong, to be honest. About the only thing that I got right was Haaland being banging and being top scorer, and City winning, which looks like those are the only 2 things that are still on. But I might have to hold my hand up and do a my bad for the whole of this episode because to add to
that as well, we both said that I think we both put Liverpool as 4th. I know you had like some iffiness about that, and then we put like Chelsea as like 7th, and that game was fairly even. And I'll be honest with you, Liverpool did not look good. So that was another one. The whole Garnacho Young Player of the Season one as well. God, yeah. It was one of the worst games I've seen from him. I like him better when he's coming off the bench. Maybe I don't know if maybe it's just like starting from the beginning of the game. He's got fresh legs, or defenders with fresh legs that he's got to run against. Maybe there's a different kind of dynamic for him. But he wasn't looking great. The only one was Haaland. Really, Haaland was really the best one that we had in that, and that was someone that's never watched football before could have made that prediction. So
exactly.
It's been a shocker, but I mean that's what it's all about, man. We got to stick our necks out here. I put Fulham going down, and they bloody
But
They
they
didn't look
didn't
too
look. They didn't
bad.
look that great either, though. Like I think Everton could have. I think there was a couple of dodgy decisions in that game as well.
Yeah,
Everton could have easily won or drawn that match. So I'd hold tight. There's a few on there. I'm going to be stubborn and hard headed and hold tight on. I still think the Newcastle Villa one looks terrible at this moment, but it's only the first week of the season.
it's a
I think
long season. Yeah,
things could change. Like I said to you off air. Um, the real season will start when they got the Champions League games and the League
yeah.
Cup comes and the FA Cup comes, and we saw what happened to them last season. But yeah, the rest of my picks stink. And a match that kind of encapsulated all of that was my team's match, Man United's match yesterday. 1-0 win over Wolves. I've got to get out there. I think that was an absolutely shocking first game from us. I think literally the only positive is that we won, and the only way we can look at it in a way that wouldn't make us all super alarmed as a Man U fan is last year. I don't think we were nearly as bad, and we lost at home to Brighton. So the fact that we absolutely stunk the place up and like Wolves completely dominated us for the whole match, and we somehow managed to win and keep a clean sheet is something for us to be very thankful for. But I think we got extremely lucky because Onana basically Superman punched their striker in the head in the last minute, and it was. I think the referees have already come out and apologised and said
I saw that
it
a
should have
bunch of
been a
them got
pen.
dropped. A
Yeah,
lot of the officials got dropped after that as well.
yeah, that whole team of officials, the referee, the VAR guys. I'm not sure if the linesman got dropped, but the people that were responsible for that decision have all been dropped from this upcoming game week's round of fixtures. So, yeah, man, I don't think apart from Varane and Onana, aside from his Superman punch, I don't think anyone comes out of that game with any kind of credit because
I
I could
think.
list
I
off all
mean,
the players and they were poor.
I might disagree with. There's one other player I thought actually played quite well. I would like to get your opinion on it. I thought Wan-Bissaka was pretty good, man. He looked good. He made a rash tackle or two, but he was really good going forward, which is something I never really say about him. But it was I felt like I saw some improvement or evolution from him. He was pretty good defending off the right hand side. It mainly was like Neto coming in from the other side that was kind of throwing balls in. But I feel like he kept that right hand side kind of locked down for the most part and was really good going forward. I just felt like he got kind of caught out of position sometimes because of what was happening in the middle of the pitch, innit?
Yeah, I mean, Wan-Bissaka is one of those ones that flies under the radar because I do think he's definitely improved quite a bit going forward. But I think the thing that always worries me about him, even going forward, and even since he's made improvements, is technically he's not great. And so there were a couple of times yesterday where he was trying he got a bit of confidence and he was trying to take people on and move, like to actually carry the ball quite a few yards forward, and he lost the ball. And so I think there were moments where I just feel like he can still improve. And I don't know if he'll ever be the profile of right back that I kind of want to see in that position. But I do acknowledge completely that he's way more defensively solid than Delo. And now with this slight improvement or, substantial improvement going forward, he's quite clearly our first choice right back. And I think he has to play because there are a couple of times where they got in on his side. I know you're right. They did focus more on the right-hand side with Neto, but there were a couple of times where people got in on his side and he made some really good recovery tackles. And if Delo was there, I think there's absolutely zero chance he would have been able to make them. So I think you're right. I think he played decent, but I think again we're talking like 7 out of 10. We're not talking above that. So it's worrying because I feel like Casemiro was exposed the whole match and was basically an island by himself in that middle of the park. And Wolves' midfield just run him ragged. I feel like Mount ran around a lot and he pressed quite well, but on the ball he wasn't amazing, and he didn't really come back and track back and support Casemiro. And I think that 8, because I essentially feel like him and Bruno should be 8s. He's got to have way more defensive responsibility and nous because Bruno, even though he's like a non-stop energizer bunny, you want him to always be ready to be on the half turn and play a ball forward and not have to worry so much about chasing people like a blue ass fly. But I think
Yeah.
Mount's got to be that one to sacrifice a bit And we've brought him in because the hope is he'd be able to do that more than Ericsson. And even though I feel like his running ability was better than Ericsson's normally is, I feel like once Ericsson came on the pitch, he actually had a bit like it looked like that position had a bit more cutting edge. And Mount brought
Yeah,
the running,
it
but
feels
not
like
the attacking.
there's going to be less distance from box to box that Christian Eriksen covers. So he's kind of more steady in the middle of the pitch,
Yeah,
whereas Mount's going to be bombing forward and then having to be bombing back. And
exactly.
it's difficult to do that over 90 minutes. That was one of the most high energy games I saw, and it was really end to end. It was like at the end of it, you could see everyone that hadn't got subbed on, and that was like from the beginning of the game, was knackered.
Yeah,
There were times where you could see from both sides. Like Semedo at times was like completely done out here because he was bombing forward and coming back. Same thing for Wan-Bissaka. So I definitely think that there was an improvement in that regard. Maybe a little bit calming down in that center of the park when Ericsson came on, and maybe that's the way forward. Maybe it is like play Mount high energy all game, and then have Ericsson come on every after 70 minutes and calm the games down a little bit. But I wanted to move on. I wanted to ask you one question, which was, unfortunately, a man that I've got in my bloody FPL, of which I am currently joint bottom in our friendship group and third or second from bottom in our family group, Mr. Marcus Rashford. Where the hell was he, mate?
yeah, he
I
didn't do
can't. I
anything.
feel like I didn't see him once in that game. He was barely touching it.
Yeah, I mean he had little moments here and there, but it's what happens when he plays up front. I think it's even easier to like mark him out the game and just keep him away from the action. And I saw there were a couple of moments when it looked like he was dropping deeper to try and get involved in the game, and he was floating out to the left and to the right. It was so obvious he was just like he just wanted to get some touches, and he's not Haaland in many ways, but he's in playing up front and not getting lots of touches, but still being um, predatory when he gets a chance. That's not Rashford. He needs to be on the ball. He needs to drive with the ball. He needs to take players on. He almost needs to get his rhythm,
Hmm.
and I think that's one of the key reasons why he's not really striker material. But I get it because we don't really have a fit striker right now. Martial, no one knows what's going on with him still. Hoyland's out injured, so he's decided to go for what we did back end of last season. I think an interesting take that I've seen floating about was why we didn't start Sancho and play him in the false nine, because that's what we've been doing in pre-season. And in a few of the matches, it was actually quite effective. And that then allows Rashford to play on the left wing. That allows you to have I know he's not the greatest focal point, but someone that could potentially get the ball and play it off onto Antony and to Rashford, and offer someone a bit deeper and closer to Bruno and kind of tie things together a bit more. And to be honest, I'm surprised that Ten Hag didn't decide to go for that switch. And then I think going to another point, which is another one which you I don't know if you mentioned earlier on one of our stinkers, was starting Garnacho, because I think that might be the poorest match I've ever seen him play for us. And I know we don't have a huge sample size, but even in other games where he started, I feel like he's had more of an impact on the game. And I think yesterday
Hmm.
Semedo had him in his pocket, um, and there were moments where I think even a Rashford playing there, or more influential Garnacho, could have had Semedo in some trouble, but he just played poor. And I think you're right what you said off camera about maybe him still being more of an impact player who comes in off the bench. I think it looks like that's his best position at the moment, to come on in impact games when you've got tired legs, because fresh legs, I can't say I've seen an amazing performance from Garnacho when he started, but yesterday was the pinnacle of like he stunk it up. And normally when we talk about wingers stinking it up, you're primed to talk about my namesake, but he wasn't great yesterday either. But Garnacho stank it up way worse. I can't think of one time he made the right decision. I can't think of one time where he took a player on and beat them. I think he really just, and young players are going to have that, so I don't want to make it feel like I'm absolutely chewing him out. But yeah, he was poor. I would say our whole front line was poor, and it was only once Sancho and Eriksen came on and the subs came on, that I feel like we had a bit more cutting edge. Sancho already in that short cameo did a lot more than both Rashford and Garnacho did on that left hand side. But even then, even saying that, they didn't turn the game around. Like, we got very lucky. It was one chance I can remember that we scored, and the rest was all one way traffic. Wolves for the rest of the time. So yeah.
I
Really
mean, on that
performance.
Garnacho point though, particularly, I think what's really effective about having Rashford in that spot is when you're playing counter-attack football, which you're really, really good at, he's got enough, even with the ball at his feet, to beat people coming back at him. So I saw there was one point in the game where you kind of were on the semi-break and like Garnacho had the ball just after the halfway line and Semedo managed to run back and basically just dust him off the ball really easily, just take the ball back and play it away. Whereas with Rashford, one of the great things about him is if you get him on the counter-attack, I don't care who you are. You could be Kyle Walker, for goodness sake. You're going to have a hard time getting the ball off him because, first of all, he's rapid. And second of all, he knows how to keep the ball at his feet. And he's also pretty smart about not taking too many touches on the dribble. So he'll knock it like quite well in terms of judging distance. So he's got a really accurate kind of long dribble. Whereas I felt like Garnacho always had like that kind of Messi-esque like touch. And when you're on the halfway line and you've got the fullbacks already like behind you, you need to be dusting it. You need to go really fast, really like as quickly as you can forward. And I found one of the big things about him was he wasn't really taking advantage of that. Whereas when I saw previously when he would come on, what I thought he was really good at is having a man kind of face him up and managing to knock it round him and get past him. And he's already kind of got the defender far enough away and he's deep enough into the opposition area to get something into the box. Whereas I feel like if he's playing deeper in the pitch and you've got a fullback like Semedo who's got legs on him, he doesn't really have the guile yet or the strength yet to be able to keep people off of him, off of his shoulders, off of the left and right. And that's where I think Rashford would have been probably a lot more effective had you started Sancho in the 9 or in the false 9 with Rashford on the left. I think that he definitely could have taken more advantage of that because Semedo was not shy going forward. I feel like I saw him more times in your half, like overlapping bloody Neto than I did see him actually defending. So I feel like Rashford certainly could have made more of that. And I think maybe just the matchup wise, maybe Ten Hag got it a little wrong based off of the fact that, obviously you got Lamina on one side, Semedo on the other side. Maybe it would have been better to go with Rashford with pace on one side. It could have helped the game. But I guess my next question is, what happened with Martinez, mate? What has happened to the butcher? He's turning into getting butchered.
Yeah, he didn't. I mean, I don't think he was abysmal, but I just think that middle of the park just got so exposed, and you saw Casemiro was getting, completely, powered through. I think there was one moment where, like, a player kind of checked him off the ball, but not like super powerfully, and he just like bounced off and then wasn't able to continue chasing and running the actual guy who had the ball. And that's why I think you're talking about fitness for Casemiro. I think after about 50 minutes, he was blowing. Like he didn't have much energy left in the tank because he was working so hard, having to cope with 2 or 3 Wolves midfielders just attacking him the whole match. And I think Martinez just. I think the problem was he got the yellow fairly early on in the first 20 minutes. Yeah. And then I think Ten Hag just realised what Wolves were doing. But I don't think he had players with the tactical nous at the time to be able to stop and prevent that attack keep coming down the middle. And it made sense to me. I don't think he got hooked because he was absolutely shocking and he got skinned like 5 or 6 times. I think he got skinned once off my memory, and the rest of the time he was just exposed. And if we didn't have Varane next to him, and this is where having a player like Varane, I think is always underestimated for us, is that he's both strong and quick, and so he's on the cover all the time. So Martinez can, even when Martinez did get skinned, Varane was the defender back, closing the striker down, and
Shaw
pushing
as well.
him out wide, and Shaw comes back as well. So they're the 2 players with recovery that can kind of save Martinez when he does get past. Because I think someone mentioned it. I was watching an Ajax fan channel before talk about Martinez when we were just signing him, and they were talking about him being really great on the ball, positionally really sound, but when he gets faced up one-on-one, he doesn't have the pace, or I guess the strength also, to always be able to brush people off, and it always gets exposed, particularly when he's caught out wide or he's pulled out of position. And I think yesterday he didn't get pulled out wide, but he got pulled. Far
Higher up the
forward,
pitch.
into the midfield, and then there was a big gaping hole behind him. And I think Wolves were exposing him. Him and Casemiro got exposed consistently, and Cunha was having a field day, as well as Matías Nunes from midfield running from deep as well. Like those two guys were such powerful runners. Like they were just gliding past people. And I thought watching Enzo for Chelsea against Liverpool was a midfield masterclass in terms of like evading challenges, being press resistant. But Matías Nunes, he gave him a run for his money, because I'm not saying we played well and his job was particularly difficult, but he made it look easy, man. He was just cutting through us like a knife through butter. And Martinez didn't have his best game. I don't think it was quite the Salah 7-0 like skinning that he was getting in that match. But I understood he had to get taken off. And I think when Lindelof came on, it did get slightly better, and I don't think he got pulled out as much. But yeah, I just... Oh, who is it that we were watching? Or you sent me a clip from? Was it Andy Tate or something like that? And I agree with him. Like
could have got the 282 through that gap, mate.
Yeah, buses were being driven.
H13,
that's what he's talking about. Yeah, there were buses driving through there, and he was right. Like, I don't think I've seen a worse opening day performance. We've had worse results. We've lost a few. I think we lost under Van Gaal, our opening fixture. I think it was at home as well to Swansea or something like that. We lost obviously last season to Brighton. So we've had a few opening day stinkers in terms of results, but in terms of performances, that was a shocker. But I mean, again, we haven't had the best pre-season, so I feel like
squeaking out the victories, man. That's all that really matters, right? And what you just hope is that it doesn't become kind of like was it Conte? Kind of the front end of last season, where everyone was like, Tottenham they're not looking good, but they're getting wins. They're not getting, imagine what happens when they actually start playing well, and they just never ended up playing well, and they stopped getting those wins. But I think for you guys, we've obviously seen it kind of struck me very like as a great summarization, or like summary, I should say, of last season, right? Like defensively, you weren't always sound, but you managed to not let in a goal, and you struggled to score. And I think without that striker, I would hope Højlund comes back as soon as possible, because you need a better goal threat. Because I think obviously the center of the park is obviously important, and the fact that you're not getting overrun in there constantly. But I felt like you were also like relatively wasteful with some of the chances that you had. And I think a better, more clinical striker, you would have scored a couple more. I know that you weren't creating tons of chances, but there was at least a couple chances that you had that could have been goals. And I think I hope for your sake, if I was a Man United fan, I would want Højlund to come back immediately, because that attacking threat is critical. You need to be able to play Rashford back out on the left. Otherwise, as we kind of said, he's going to be very ineffective in that striker position, especially if Garnacho has the stinker like he did last time, trying to give him or feed him balls, because the attacking threat was a little bit worrying as well from my point of view.
Yeah, I think I agree with you completely, man. There was basically no threat, but I think there were a few moments where we had, because I don't like to say, I'm not trying to be a tactico and one of those tifo football guys. Although I love tifo football, they're class. But I'm not one of those guys to use newfangled words and stuff. But like the transition ball that Ten Hag wants us to play, because I don't think he necessarily wants to play purely counter-attack, but I think he wants to play football where we move quickly between attack and defence and attack, and take advantage of those moments where I guess it makes sense, because the team is very vulnerable. We had moments in transition yesterday where it wasn't even the final ball, because I don't think we got that close, but I think the ball before the final ball, the moves broke down. And so where something was starting to look like it was a dangerous opportunity, Rashford we either had a 3v3 or 3v2 or something like that, where if we play the the next few passes correctly, we were going to be in with the shot. We just didn't get in those positions, or we made the wrong pass. But I think just even before we get there, I was looking at what Onana was doing. Obviously, his debut, new goalie. He's got all of this fan foray about him being good with the ball and being able to pick out passes and all this kind of stuff. I was looking at it at the beginning. There was no movement, and like there was no one moving, and we just still ended up doing the same passes that De Gea would have been doing to Luke Shaw, to Lissandro, to Varane, to Wan-Bissaka. There were hardly any passes into the midfield, and definitely not line-breaking passes. It may have been a little, a short, direct ball in front to Casemiro, who gave it back to him, and it was just like there was no movement. And so I think by default, if you bring on a striker, or you bring in a striker, and you move Rashford out left, automatically, I would assume those guys are going to move more. There's going to be more options, and then it's going to create a bit more disorder, and that's what Onana needs to be able to play those balls through the lines, and that's what Bruno needs. That's what everyone basically needs from our perspective to be able to create chances. And I don't think we had that with the players that we started. And I think even with Sancho and Eriksen, they were still too static, and there wasn't enough movement. So I think you need those players who are going to bring something different. And I think the overall summary I would give was that looked like a team that wasn't rebuilt yet. It looked like a team that clearly we still need a few more pieces to be able to come in to that team for us to, I think, gel properly and be any kind of team that I think is gonna challenge for any kind of a trophy or decent league position. Because it looked like we were first game of the season, fresh out, not ready. And Wolves shocked me because they looked like they'd been playing,
hey, Gary O'Neill might be a magician. He might be a wizard in plain clothes out here.
Honestly, if watching
Harry
that
O'Neill,
match,
I'm going to call him, mate.
exactly.
Harry O'Potter.
I'm telling you, because I was worried for him. But to be fair, what Dev said last week makes a lot of sense now. Like, honestly, I think he must be a fantastic coach, because the way they performed off about 4 days training, with a team that's been decimated, and they've lost a bunch of players through transfers and contracts expiring, etc. They played like a team that had been, playing for weeks and weeks and weeks. So yeah, shout out to Wolves. They played really well, and big warning signs for us, because I think in any other game, if that had been played another 9 times out of 10, we would have lost it. I don't even think a draw. I think the way if we had come out with a draw, I think that would have been fortuitous. But to come out with a win, it honestly feels like we've completely done them over.
Smash and grab, innit?
Smash and grab. Absolutely. Let's get over my depression of that performance and all my terrible takes, and chat about Arsenal, because on Saturday, you guys were at home to Forest. A tight victory, but it's one of those ones I've seen out there which people are kind of... I've seen some really weird takes and opinions about that game. Some people are going, real big and saying that you battered them and 2-1 was a flattering scoreline. I've seen other people say that it was a bit of a squeaky bum match and Arsenal didn't play that great. What's your take on it?
I think they're both right, because for the first, let's say the majority of the match, we were battering them. We did look like we were, a level above them. And that kind of tells from the fact that we scored kind of 2 relatively early goals. I think, generally speaking, our new players looked really good. Again, Timber looked good up until obviously the injury. Rice continued to look pretty good. We just I think Havertz, maybe again, he put in kind of a decent-ish performance. I'm going to say like a 6 out of 10. It wasn't anything special, but he didn't have a bunch of clangers. He definitely in the Community Shield match, he missed a couple of big chances that he should have scored. In this one, it seemed like he obviously was playing a slightly different role, and as a result, didn't really get those kinds of chances, but also didn't make any massive mistakes. So from that point of view, again, new signings looked pretty good, but I felt like it all shifted at a certain point in the match. I can't remember if it was maybe about the 70th minute. It definitely felt like it was a domino effect from when Timber kind of had to go off to having to put Tomiyasu on, losing that kind of threat down that side. And obviously, there was weird selection choices from the get go to have Partey starting at right back. You want to, as a fan, you want to be able to understand some of the decisions that are being made, and that one was again just one that I did not understand really. And again, I kind of felt like similar to what you're saying with Mount and with Bruno, that we have Havertz and Odegaard playing. And by doing that, you're actually moving the responsibility away from Odegaard in what used to be kind of, he was a more progressive player, right? He was playing a little bit further up the pitch than the other player, the other midfielder. And with Havertz there, it kind of felt like Havertz had to be further forward because that's kind of what he does. That's where he's better. And it pushed Odegaard back a bit. And I think Odegaard was super quiet as a result, which I don't like because he was one of our kind of best creative outlets last season. And we kind of, I don't know what it was. We kind of capitulated from there. And then we got found out on the physical side of the ball because obviously, as we all know, that Nottingham Forest have got players that are basically the monsters in Space Jam. They've got players that are built like absolute brick houses that just absolutely dominated us, right? They brought on Awaniyi. They brought on Kouyaté. They brought on giants and they just started kind of playing not long ball football. They were playing like kind of aerial football where we weren't really able to get the ball back off of them. They were putting balls in dangerous spots. And then our defense started to make some strange errors. And I feel like the defense to me, and you said a great word there, was disorder. And at a certain point in the game against Forest, our defense looked in disarray. There was disorder in that defense, and it didn't look like the right men knew who to pick up. There was times where someone was going out wide, and Ben White was kind of staying inside because I think it was maybe Saliba or Gabriel had bombed up for a corner or something. So Ben White's getting pulled out of position. He's trying to cover the centre, but then there's someone bombing down the left-hand side. And as you know, obviously, you've got Morgan Gibbs-White bombing up. You've got Brennan Johnson down the other side. Like, it was creating some real problems for us, and we started to get caught out. And then obviously we let in a goal. And you remember when we were watching it together, like I think it was the 82nd minute. I said, all right, and stop talking now. It's time for me to concentrate on the game. We're not discussing nothing. I was doing 50p, 20p, right? Over and over again. So we made that match a way, way harder than it needed to be. It was a game of kind of really not two halves necessarily, but two sides of the coin where we were dominating and then just silly decisions. I think I'm going to be honest with you, silly game management of who should be bringing on, who should be playing where. Injuries are going to happen. As a manager, you've got to figure out what's the right decision. And I don't think Arteta necessarily made the right decisions. And we're lucky to come out with the win there because I think at the back end of that game, it felt like they were going to get another. They were going to get a second and they were going to equalise and we were going to be, flashbacks to the back end of last season again. So it was a strange one. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not as disappointed maybe as you are with the performance, but I'm still a little worried. There's something about that is rubbing me up the wrong way. There's something about that makes me even question the second, predicting them to come second in the league, because that wasn't a performance that I think is going to push City at all, based off of them obviously slapping Burnley. Because let's be honest, Forest a little bit better, but Burnley and Forest are around about the same level, and we should be smashing them in the same convincing fashion that City smashed Burnley. So worrying. I'm not sure what your take on it. Like, as a neutral, what did you think? Which one do you agree with? Did we dominate or was it squeaky?
I'm not on either extreme, I have to say. I think both takes are a little bit of a stretch. I wouldn't say you like absolute. I know the stats might show this. I haven't looked at all the stats, but the first half you look good, and I don't think you looked like. I would say you looked similar levels to the levels City were reaching against Burnley, because again, like the scoreline makes it look like they absolutely hammered Burnley off the park, but Burnley were playing decent football in that game, and it was uncharacteristic. Well, I don't know if you can say that anymore, but traditionally Pep wouldn't be playing the style of football he played against Burnley to win, and the scoreline makes it look like they absolutely wiped the towel with them, but. I think you put in a similar level performance against Forest, and 2-0 was about right. I think Martinelli and Saka had good games in that first half. I'm seeing some wild takes about how Martinelli was unplayable and all this. I don't think he was unplayable, but I think he played he had a really good first half. And I think obviously he came up with that little trick which set up Nketiah to score the goal. We kind of talked about at the time. I don't know if he meant it as a pass, but it was definitely like a nice bit of skill that he was trying to, bamboozle those two defenders with. And it happened to land to Nketiah, who got quite lucky with a little deflection and scored.
Great finish. What are you talking about? Great finish.
Yeah, no. I know you want to build up Nketiah.
Clinical,
because
Haaland, mate. Haaland-esque.
Yeah, exactly. Nketiah's in the room and all that rubbish with that stupid song.
Erling Nketiah, come out.
Yeah, Erling Nketiah, those jokes. But no, I'm happy for him because I actually quite like Nketiah. But as a person, anyway, he seems like a decent lad. I saw his interview afterwards. He seemed decent, and I feel like he gets a lot of slack when actually his goal scoring record's not terrible. At home, I think he scored 14 out of the last 16 appearances or something. So he's done decent. Saka's goal was obviously a worldie, like curled it at top bins. And I feel like he was causing some issues down that side, and it looked a bit more like last season's Saka than we saw kind of at the tail end of the last bit of the season, in like April, May time. But yeah, the second half, I think you're right. After Timber got injured, I think it just fell flat more than anything. That's why I say your first half performance was good. And I know you may have had more of the ball in the second half before they scored, but you just didn't. The game kind of just went into a bit of a lull. I think I said it to you when we were watching. I was like, this game's just suddenly got dead. We need another goal. We need something to happen, because otherwise it's just gonna completely peter out into a kind of boring 2-0 win in the end, which I'm sure you would have loved, but it wouldn't have been an amazing second half from that perspective, and I think it just got worse. I think Steve Cooper made some really smart tactical changes, and tactical substitutions, more like, because I think they carried on playing a similar way, but bringing on Elango, who I think had a great impact down that left hand side and set up the goal, was really good. I think he was, and I said it to you at the time, him and Brendan Johnson are quite similar. They're like, fast, pacey wingers, very direct. I think the big difference is Elanga, his decision making's a bit better. And I think when he came on and he ran down that wing, I wasn't shocked to see him square it perfectly for Awaniyi to score. He's done that before for us. He just unfortunately didn't get a lot of chances. But I think he'll do well at Forest, and I think he kind of exposed what again looked like tired legs from you guys. I have to be honest. I think it didn't look. I wouldn't be worried. Obviously, I wouldn't have minded if Nottingham Forest equalised. But if I was an Arsenal fan, it didn't feel like you were backed against the wall. It didn't feel like they were banging down the door to try and get an equaliser. I think they were chucking long balls in. And they were trying to make it difficult, but at no point did I think they were going to equalise. And I think I was more comfortable than you were with it being 2-1, because I still think you had a semblance of control even at 2-1, and I think it was a good sign of maturity actually. Like maybe you weren't playing well at that point, but I don't think you were starting to give up chances and look super nervous and give Nottingham Forest a real belief that they could equalise. I think they were trying, but I think
they were taking advantage, as you said, of tired legs. Because I think there was one thing, I said it to you while we were watching the game, right, is he's brought on Trossard for Nketiah, right? And he's left Saka out there again. Saka by the 80th minute was flagging. He was done. He's a young guy, and we've played him like pretty much every minute he could play. He's had no serious injuries. He's had barely any rest, and he's essentially carried the team on his back for a long part of the last season, and again yesterday with that goal. And one of the big issues was when Elanga came on down that left hand side is Saka is. I think there's a part of his game that's kind of underrated or maybe downplayed or just not really talked about very much, which is he offers quite a lot going back too. He's pretty strong. He's decent defensively to support that right back, and Elanga was, at the end of the game, coming on with fresh legs. Saka was absolutely knackered. He was still trying to bomb forward. It looked like we were trying to get a third goal. And he was getting caught out where he was the right back wasn't getting as much support. And Elanga was taking advantage of counter-attacking situations. And to me that was one of the big, not indictments necessarily, but it just showed that maybe the decision making was not good when it came to substitutions that we made. Because Trossard again looked really, really good, and I don't understand why we just refuse to ever take Saka off. I'm not proposing that we don't start him. He's still clearly our best right winger, but goodness gracious, give him a rest. That boy must be absolutely knackered. He's been playing week in, week out for both club and country for the last 12, 18 months. Like, come on, give this guy a rest. We're already 2-0 up. You're making substitutions. You could have taken him off. And Trossard looked dangerous as well. So Trossard could have continued to give problems down that side. But no, we take off bloody Nketiah and we bring on Trossard. It just didn't make sense to me. And that was the thing that they took advantage of. And then they brought on fresh legs, let alone bloody 5'4" legs, just the leg portion of Kouyaté. Like, we ended up, I know they weren't like absolutely dominating us, but there was nothing secure about that last 10 minutes to me. Like, I was like, this game is not over. And I think if we played 5 more minutes, they would have got another goal, because we were not hanging on for it. But, when our team starts bloody booting the ball down the other side of the pitch and everyone starts, Rose Ed football, John Smith type football, that there's something wrong. And that to me kind of showed that they were tired and they just wanted to get the game over and done with. And luckily we held out, but that could have gone another way. And I would have. This is going to sound harsh. I would have entirely put the blame on Arteta had that happened, because that was terrible in my mind. Terrible substitutions to be making in that situation.
No, I agree with you. I think if you had have conceded, it would have definitely been on Arteta. Because I agree. I think it was the opposite. Steve Cooper, I would say, should get praise for his subs, because I think they made an impact. And I think Arteta, there should be some questions around it, because I agree. I think he probably should have taken Timber off at half time, because it was quite clear he was already
had a knock before it. Yeah.
And who knows? Hopefully that won't have impacted it negatively, but I think it's risky, especially when someone's complaining about knee pain or whatever. We've seen like how many people have got ACLs in the last week alone. I think it's been crazy. So I would have. I think that was probably slightly a bit of a mistake. I think. Yeah, bringing on Trossard for Nketiah, even though I think Nketiah did look quite tired, I think he probably should have brought a few other players on for your other wingers as well. And I'm gonna ask questions about that lineup, like you said at the beginning of the game, because I do also think throughout the game I was asking you, what's going on with your back line? Because that right back position, it looked like he was trying to copy the Man City box midfield, but Partey I think he just got sucked into going into his natural DM position more than he needed to. And I do think, again, I haven't watched it back again, but, it doesn't surprise me that off a corner and a clearance, a counter-attack, it's that right back spot that's exposed, because it always looked lopsided throughout the match. I was watching it saying, Timber's left back, all right, but he looks more like left of a centre back. You had Ben White, Saliba in the middle, Ben White on the right hand side of it, and then you had no one in the right back position, and they were having to like shift over to be a back three. But obviously, having that interchangeable formation in possession and out of possession, you have to be really good at that. That's why you have to give credit to Man City for doing that. They've mastered it in such a short space of time. You've tried to implement it, but I don't know if Partey executed it well on the day. And I think we're going back to the same point I think we made in a couple of other episodes, which is I don't think he had a horrendous game, Partey, but I'm looking at him, man, and I'm looking at that position and saying
that's upgradable.
I think long term, if Rice isn't already his replacement, you can get another person in there, because I think he hasn't got long left at the level that he was showing last year and the season before. I think he might not be on the sharp end of his decline, but I think he's over the peak of his performance, or at least these last few performances in the back end of last season have made me really question, like where you'll be going in the future with him in DM. And definitely, I would not persist with him at right back. It might have been a circumstantial one because Gabriel was injured. I'm hoping for your sake it is, because I wouldn't, if I was an Arsenal fan, I wouldn't want to see Partey at right back again, even if it is, understandable if he's going to be shifting into DM. I don't think he's got the tactical nous to be able to pull off that transformation between a back, the right back to the box midfield thing.
So I'm gonna have to go on a little rant now. Pep Guardiola, what have you done? Why can't we just play players in their natural positions anymore? Why do you play a defensive midfielder as a right back? Why do we continuously, now we're playing Tomiyasu as a left back? Why do we have to do this? It's all because of you, Pep. Why did you have to do this to make everyone think it was possible? Now you've got every Tom, Dick and Harry thinking that they can play bloody Willy Bolly as a goalkeeper or whoever they want as what. If we've learned anything from Football Manager, play your bloody players in their natural positions. You get the best out of them. Make your system fit the players you've got, not the players that you've got fit your system, because we've seen that doesn't always work. And if we don't have the right player at right back, why didn't you bloody buy a right back? Why are we having to put Partey in right back? And saying all of that, we've strengthened the defence, right? We've got a lot of defenders as it is, and now we've strengthened it up, obviously, up until Timber got injured. And you're playing Partey right back. It doesn't make any sense to me. You've got Zinchenko, you've got Tierney, you've got Ben White, you've got loads of players that can play these positions. If you want, bloody bring back Nuno Tavares. Do whatever you want, but why are you playing Thomas Partey at right back? Pep, you've ruined football, man. Can you just go back to playing a 4-4-2 so everyone can just relax for a couple of years and get back to playing proper football before we start playing, John Stones in DM and whatever weird five out of possession, 4 in possession, whatever you want to call it. Just can we all just calm down and take a minute? At least I respect that about Ten Hag. He's not looking at somebody else and saying, "Oh, you know what? I'm going to do a terrible version of that." He's saying, "Okay, I'm gonna do what I need to do with the players I've got." And unfortunately for you guys right now, you don't really have, a lot of players to fit the system that he really wants to play, or at least you're trying to get there. But as you said, in a rebuild, but he's doing his best with what he's got. He's not playing people in weird positions and, just trying to be creative. We're playing bloody Nottingham Forest. We're not playing Real Madrid. You haven't got to do all these things, mate. Just try a proven formation and batter them off the pitch. I'm sick of it.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. Like, I think Arteta's... I think your rant will be more applicable when you actually see, like, Sheffield United trying to do it, and, like, they clearly don't have the players. I think it's understandable why Arteta's tried it from that perspective. You've got good players. You might have players who he believes can do that. But I think it was a little bit excessive because, like you said, in the position you're currently in, before the Timber injury, you could have formed that back four in more of a natural way with 3 or 4 other combinations of players that you had in your disposal. You could have even kept Timber left back, put Ben White right back, brought in Kivior and Saliba if Gabriel's injured. You could have brought in Tomiyasu right back, shifted White, alongside Saliba like it was, Timber left back. Like, if Zinchenko's fit, I don't know, is he fit or has he just been dropped? I don't know. Tierney, you could have played on the left back side and put Timber out on the right back. Like, there were so many options you've got now that isn't going to lead to, for example, putting Holding centre back, which I know is something you guys don't want.
If that happens,
but you've
again,
got so many.
You've
got so many. Exactly, you've got so many options that don't put Holding centre back and don't put Partey at right back. But for some reason, he thought that Partey could do it. And maybe he has done it before, or for Atletico Madrid before. But there's one fundamental difference, which I think is quite a big difference when you're trying to do this. John Stones is a defender. So he's very good at defending. Either centre-back or right-back. He's played those positions pretty much throughout his development. The ask for him to move into midfield is different than asking a midfielder to start at right back and then move into midfield. You're doing it in reverse. So even though Partey is a very capable and good defensively minded midfielder, he's not a defender. So you're asking him to kind of the thing that is more of a bonus and like a bit of a cheat is the midfield part, not the defense part. But it looks like you've done it the other way around and thought, okay, he's a good midfielder, and the additional is him being able to come into right back, which I think was. I understand why you take that risk against a Forest. They're not a great team, but what the premise taught is Forest are not that rubbish.
Exactly, and it's the Trent theory, but the opposite way round, same result. Terrible right back, decent in midfield. Let's just keep it the way that it should be. Wherever they're good at playing, play them there. And as you said, it's not easy to be a right
going
back.
Forward. Don't cheat going back. What this proves is, and you're right with Trent, is he's amazing going forward. He's very bad going back. You know, to quote Sava from the Big Six that time. Like, he's a terrible defender. And the problem with Partey is, I don't think he's a terrible defender necessarily, but he's got more midfielder instincts. So if you're asking him to, it's a risk to ask him to be able to do that right back position and play.
And he's also a central player. Playing in the centre of the park versus playing on a wing is very, very different too, right? With John Stones, he was a relatively central player. I know that they played him out on the right side every now and then, but he's a centre back. So for him to just move a little bit further forward, he knows what he's doing. He knows he's got to look left and right. He knows he's got to look back and forward. He knows what he's doing in that portion of the park. And again, with Partey, he knows what he's doing in the centre of the park. Playing on the right-hand side is a very different story. So I agree with you totally. Like, there's got to be a little bit more thought. As you say, this guy can't really defend, or his natural instinct is not to be a defender. So maybe let's not try and put him in a defensive position, right? It's the same way that with Havertz, his natural instinct is more about creating, passing, dribbling, link-up play. You can't put him in a natural 9 position and expect him to just turn his instinct on to be a striker and to just shoot every single time and hit the back of the net every single time. You've got to look at the attributes and see whether they are transferable. It's just like a job, right? Transferable skills versus sector-specific skills. And unfortunately, I think Partey doesn't have the transferable skills to be a right back. I don't think Havertz has the transferable skills to be an out-and-out poaching finisher. And I think that's the learning here. And I hope at some point they're just going to look at it and be like, all right, a spade is a spade. Let's leave this one alone before we start trying to change everyone into whatever we want them to be.
Yeah, no, I think it's okay if it's an extreme backup. You have an injury crisis, you have something that comes up, and you know that these guys are fairly competent in playing those positions. That's all okay. But I don't think that was the case against Forest, and I think it was a risk he took. And I think, again, nowhere near comparable to us yesterday, because we just played poor. We stunk it up. But I think you took a risk and you got away with it. And I don't think it was as drastic as you're saying. Even I think that you're putting your Arsenal rose-tinted glasses on with the maybe some PTSD around kind of how squeaky it was at the end of the match. I don't think if you played for another 15, 20 minutes, Forest would have scored again. I think you were fairly in control, but I do think you were losing energy, and Arteta was making the wrong subs, and I think you made it unnecessarily tighter than it needed to be, because it was a comfortable 2-0 win. I don't think it was an amazing performance, but it was a comfortable 2-0 win after kind of the second half, and I think you kind of shot yourselves in the foot. But, you got the 3 points. We're both 3-point collectors this week, despite not necessarily having the score lines or results that we were expecting. But we move on to game week 2. So let's talk about Arsenal. I think you guys are the Monday night kickoff away at Palace. Good old Boy came away with a 1-0 win, and it was starting some beef. Yeah, starting some beef on the sidelines, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. That was one of the brighter spots of this weekend's football. Honestly,
I'm so glad we still have him in the league, because there was some questions about whether he's going to sign up, but mate, you've got to have Roy Hodgson in the league. He is an absolute legend of the game, and that wanting to beef someone that's like 3x younger than him was just the highlight of that game, to be honest with you.
And like an athlete as well. Like an athlete. He's like, bless him, he's old enough to be our granddad, to be honest. He's out here trying to, get little digs on the right back. That was class. But I mean, I think we've got to put some respect on his name too, because he's had them ticking, and they've lost Zaha. Their goalie's writing crazy tweets and Instagram posts that Fabrizio Romano's is sharing about, not being able to play and going on strike and all this kind of stuff. It hasn't been all rosy for them. They haven't made loads of signings. I think they've signed one Brazilian lad, and a few kind of lower key signings. But victory as well for them. And they're a decent little team, man. I think they'll be safe from relegation. And at Selhurst Park, they're a tough nut to crack, man. I think you guys have felt that before away at Palace. We've definitely felt it even last season. I think we were quite fortuitous to come away with a draw. But how do you see it going?
I think you summarized it pretty well. I think we're going to win 3-1. But I don't think it's going. No, but I don't think it's going to be like a battering 3-1. I think we'll probably get a goal. They'll score back, and then at some point in the game, hopefully those things happen early. At some point in the game, Arteta's going to be like, "All right, let's do what works here. Make whatever changes are required, and hopefully we'll get an early goal after half time, and then run away with it from there." That's kind of how I see things going. I think they're going to put up a kind of formidable opposition for the first half. And I definitely think they're going to score. I have zero faith right now that our defense is not going to let a goal in. We've shown before that we have a slow start to certain games. That we bloody let in the quickest goal ever now. Was it tied for the quickest goal ever? So we've seen that we don't always start our games very quickly or very well. So I can imagine that first 20 minutes not being great, and then at some point us just kicking ahead and making the gap a bit bigger. So that's kind of how I see things going, but it could easily be a lot closer than that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. I think it could go one of two ways. So either you're going to have a really tough battle and they're going to stick it on you for the first 10, 15 minutes and you're going to crumble and it's going to get to you and they're going to nick a goal and it could be a long, long day if they do that. Or you're gonna go through that same process, but you're gonna nick the early goal and you're gonna quiet the crowd down. And I think if you do, even if they get an equaliser, even if it's not they don't completely capitulate, I think you've got a good chance of winning the game. And I think I'm gonna lean towards the latter. I don't think you guys are gonna crumble. I know the Nottingham Forest game was not great for the heart rate because of the late goal they pulled back, but I think you guys have got a bit more steel about you than we're used to seeing in modern times from Arsenal. Like the original Arsenal were a bunch of brick houses and what Klopp has called mentality monsters, Tony Adams and that class of players, and then the first kind of lineup that Wenger brought in from abroad. They were all foreigners with some grit and determination. But this modern Arsenal has been a bit more known for the silky
capitulation.
Football. Yeah, the silky football, but the bit of the soft underbelly type thing. But I don't think your current team is like that. I think you guys are proving week by week, and I think this season will be season on season that you guys have got more grit and determination. And I think the worst case you'll come away with a draw in this match, but I think it's more than likely that you'll win 2-0, 2-1, like you said, 3-1 could easily be possible. And I think the one thing I hope and pray for you that Arteta starts Trossard, because I can't keep seeing him come on and play amazingly and have huge impact on games and just resign myself that he's going to be that he's going to be your super sub, because I feel like right now with no Jesus, I think he proved last season when Jesus was out that he's more than capable of playing the false nine or playing off either flank. And I think I know it would be harsh on Nketiah because he scored, but I think he should be in serious contention to start in this game. And I think
I want to see Rice Partey and Odegaard start with Partey in the DM position, and then I wouldn't mind Trossard ahead of that. I think Havertz obviously good, but I think we need to test something else out here. I like the fact that he's showing kind of faith in that, but I don't think we can play Trossard and Havertz. I think we have to choose one of the two. Otherwise, we end up being a little bit too attacking in that space, and they're going to get in each other's way. So I'd like to test out Rice in that 8 position, put Odegaard back in the 10. And put kind of Partey sitting in front of the defence where he should be. And let's see if that works. I don't mind doing that. I don't mind Trossard in front of that, right? If we can push him forward a little bit more, do whatever. But I don't think we can play Trossard and Havertz together.
Yeah, no, I
I
agree
think we've
with
got
you.
to try something a little bit different here. And if I had the squad and it was on my Football Manager save, that's probably how I'd start it. You know, I would leave Nketiah on the bench, leave Havertz on the bench, and see what happens. And you've always got them to bring on. And I like the idea of, you know, being able to bring on a big tall geezer like Havertz at some point in the game to try and affect some things. I like the idea of bringing Nketiah on. Those are decent. Those are decent, you know, substitutions to have. So that's how I'd like to see us start. But who knows? Arteta's kind of obviously in a different world right now.
Yeah,
So
I think it
we'll
also
see.
depends on the injuries. Timber losing Timber. If
Yeah,
Tierney and Zinchenko are still injured or unavailable for whatever reason, if Gabriel has a problem that isn't just something that missing out on the last match will solve, then I could see you sticking with Partey at right back and keeping the Havertz, Odegaard, and Rice trio in midfield. So yeah, I think it depends more on that. I'm just saying, my wish would be, what you said, that midfield trio and Trossard up front. Or if they keep Nketiah up front, that's fine, but bring Trossard on relatively soon if things aren't going well, and give him a good chance to impact the game, because I think he's really proven that he's been a very astute buy. I know you're going for Mudryk last January,
I
and
thank God that we didn't get him.
honestly, I think you've come out. Even if Mudryk will improve, and I think he's not absolutely rubbish, and I think Pochettino will be a good coach for him. I think Trossard has been a great signing, and I think even if he stays being an impact sub, it's been a really good buy. But I think you guys will be okay. But I wouldn't be shocked if the first 20 minutes, like you said, is a bit bumpy. And I think once you ride that out, you should be okay. And I think ultimately your wingers, the quality that you have um, creatively from Odegaard, I don't think Crystal Palace can stop that. And I don't think good old Roy will find a solution to that. But yeah, I agree with you, man. I predict an Arsenal win. But yeah, I think it'll be a good match, good Monday night match, unlike our one yesterday. United. Let's move on to United. We've got Spurs away on Saturday night. I think it's going to be live on Sky. I'm not super optimistic about this, because even though Spurs didn't have a fantastic result on Sunday against Brentford, I didn't think they played that badly, and I think their plus point is our negative from this first round of fixtures. I think Basuma and Skip were good in midfield, and Madison were good against
Yeah.
Brentford. And I think our midfield, I've talked already for ages about them. I think they were absolutely rubbish. So I'm a bit worried. I think the fact we went to Spurs last season when they were in the absolute mud, and battered them in the first 45 minutes and still somehow managed to capitulate and draw that match. I wouldn't be surprised if we drew it again or took the L. Um, so I think he's going to go for a similar lineup. I'm hoping that he starts Sancho in the false nine, Rashford out wide, and I think we'll go with the same midfield. I'm hoping with that selection of Sancho in the false nine, it will bring him deeper, allow Bruno and Mason Mount to be a little bit more like eights rather than tens, and then that will bring us a bit more control in midfield. I think if he does that, then I think we've definitely got a chance at beating Spurs, because I think, like I said, we've talked about on other pods, they're going to be a madhouse team, and I think they're going to score loads, but they're going to concede loads. And I think if it push comes to shove, our defense is better than theirs by quite a while. So it's just whether or not we're able to gain that control in midfield, and whether we play the right players that I think will be able to affect the game. So I think if he does that, I think we can win. But I think I wouldn't be surprised if it was like a 3-2 or a draw 2-2. I'm pretty sure there'll be lots of goals in this game. What do you think?
I was exactly going to say the same. I think it's going to be a 2-2 draw. I think if anyone's going to nick it, it's going to be you guys, but I think it's going to be a 2-2 draw. But just because, as you said, Tottenham are going to score. They looked good. Madison looked really creative. I think they've still got the attacking threats to score against you guys, even though you guys obviously don't let in a whole ton of goals. But I think it's at Spurs Stadium, right?
Yeah.
So I think at home they're going to get a couple goals past you. I think that will kind of G up the crowd, get them going a little bit. But I still see them letting goals in. Vicario looked shocking. I'm not even sure if I'm saying his name right. I'm not even sure if that's his name. I've just given him that name, and he was shocking. So if you put the ball anywhere near him, it's going in the back of the net. Even if it's not even on target, I'm sure he'll slap it into the back of the net. He is Lloris V2. So I see them letting in goals too. So it's just going to be a game of who's going to score more. And I think 2-2 or like a 3-2 to you guys is a result I can see happening. Definitely a high scoring game.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm not as damning of Vicario, but he did look shaky. I think if Romero's concussed and he's out for the match and they play Davinson Sanchez, I'm sure Rashford and Sancho will be licking their lips because he's absolutely atrocious. But yeah, I think it'll be a high scoring game. I'd be absolutely shocked if there were less than 2 goals in that match, and I would be shocked if either one of us got a clean sheet. Like I'm fairly certain there's going to be lots of action in that match because looking at how open we were and looking at how Spurs just can't defend, I think it should be a good game to watch for the neutrals. And probably not so much for either Spurs or United fans. But the other thing to touch on, I guess, before we wrap up is something that I might rant about, and that is Sir Harold Maguire, the bastard, has apparently stalled on the transfer to West Ham, and it looks like it's not going to be happening.
Well, hey.
So yeah, I don't even know if I need to throw this to you for your opinion because I know what yours will be. That it's obviously great news for our rivals, but I'm absolutely fuming when I saw that news go out and all the kind of journalists report on it and the reasons as well. I think the reasons. Look, I think there are a lot of reasons to dislike Harry Maguire as a football player because I think he's been absolutely appalling for us. Barring the first 6 months when I think he was semi decent and we played with a low block. He's come out with some absolute shocking statements talking about not needing to prove himself and kind of just overall giving this disgusting aura of being an amazing top centre back without any evidence to back it up. People forget about his legal problems in Greece when he was punching up policemen and doing all kinds of stupid stuff. And then on top of that, now it comes out that he is rejecting or stalling on the transfer because he wants £15 million in compensation to make up for the salary difference between his current Man U salary and West Ham. Like, the only thing he hadn't ticked off was mercenary and just for the money. And now, well done, Harry, you flipping twat. You've managed to tick that off as well. So you're literally been a rubbish player for us, absolute waste of money, and we've paid for Leicester's training ground because of the exorbitant fee that we've paid for you. You've literally made us like have to go off social media for the amount of memes that have been created around your absolute abysmal football, and now you're a money grabber as well. So I don't know if there's anything more to say about you, but get out the club. You're a bloody disgrace, and last week we tried to hold back, and we talked about it, Johnson, and say we don't want to do this bullying thing. We don't want to do anything and come out and go over the top. But if he doesn't accept the transfer to West Ham for his own sake as well, he's an absolute disgrace because you're willing to sit on the bench. And look, yesterday Martinez got a yellow card, and we needed to bring someone on. You didn't get on, mate. We brought on Lindelof, and if Lindelof wasn't on the bench, and we had only Malacia on the bench, you would have put Shaw at left centre back, and you would have put Malacia on. You still wouldn't have come on. So why are you staying? There's literally no reason for you to stay. Go to West Ham or somewhere else. Play football. You'll still be paid handsomely. You might have a chance that Gareth Southgate, that dumbass, will still pick you for England. But this is literally, like I said before, no words. But I have so many words for him off the back of this news. Obviously, if this is true, if it's not true, then cut all of that, Johns, and we can edit it from the pod. But if it is true, and there's so many credible journalists talking about it that it must be true, I'm sorry, you're a disgrace, man. You're an absolute disgrace. You're the epitome of Brexit ball football and home country bias, and you need to get out. Go play for West Ham. No offense, West Ham. It'll be actually great for you. or Everton or Everton, but just get out of my club. You're not a top 6 player. We don't play the style that you can be semi-decent in. Just put us out of misery, mate. Please. Oh, I'm going to have a breakdown.
Oh God!
Oh,
whoever's listening out there, you just got absolutely world class television / radio.
I'm gonna,
that was
I'm
unbelievable. He's crying for goodness sake.
You could have put me in the obituary part of the preview of the pod now, aren't you? Absolutely, I can't take it, man.
That's a coming up clip right there.
Yeah,
that is
honestly,
definitely going to go in there.
I was trying to hold it in when you sent me the little meme on Instagram and just play it cool. But I'll have a full blown breakdown if he doesn't leave the club, because it's honestly. And I saw some other like football content creators, say, look, guys, don't get gassed. Wait until he's holding up the shirt. If there was one who's willing to pull out of a transfer and keep us in the mud, it's Harry Maguire. And I didn't listen to him. I got gassed. I thought, there's no way. There's no way he's not going to accept this. They're going to give him a decent wage. They've got money. They've got David Moyes. He's a big enough idiot to actually believe in buying Harry Maguire. It's going to be all right. But nah, he's gone and he's done it to us. It's the only way he could have stabbed us in the front, back, or side to side one more time, and us not see it coming. So,
we need to put some Facebook or Twitter ads on and direct this specifically at football managers in the East End of London, because I need David Moyes to see this indictment of Slabhead.
No.
And
it's too late, man.
And to back out the deal.
I've seen reports already saying they're moving on to their alternatives now in the next 48 hours. We've literally got 48 hours for that big waste of space to change his mind and accept 100 grand instead of 200 grand. Come on, man. You're still a millionaire. Go and play.
You guys
West
need
Ham.
to get like get like an Indiegogo or get like a Just Giving page. Start up a Just Giving page and start donating so you can get that 7 million or whatever he's asking for.
What I've heard
and get him out of the club.
What I've heard is, and again, this might be all rubbish, right? But what I've heard is we've offered a compensation package. I think it is of 7 million, but he's holding out for the 15 million because that's the difference in wages he would have got in the next couple of years. But yeah, now look, if I was in that position, I might take this approach too. But if I was Harry Maguire and if I was in his shoes, I 100% can say with complete surety
with a clear
that
heart,
with a clear mind that I would go to West Ham, I would accept a lower pay package, and I would go and try and play and salvage my England career. And just my Premier League career. They're also in Europe as well. Like, there's literally, money is the only real reason, and delusions of grandeur to believe that you can still play at that level are the only reasons why he would want to stay. Like, he's getting booed on tour in America. Like, there's been years we've gone on tour in America and other countries where they didn't even know all the players that were on the pitch. These guys know so well that they're booing you in pre-season, that you're a liability for us. Like, the writing's on the wall, man. Like, do it for yourself. You've got a family, you've got a wife and children. Why would you want to put them through this kind of you must be getting dogs abuse. Like, and of course, I'm a hypocrite because I've contributed now in this last 5-10 minutes. But I feel like I'm still being kind. Like, there are people out there that write horrible stuff and boo you and treat you like shit at games. I'm just saying, for your career, for the best of our club, for everyone, it's the right deal. And I just don't get it. And I feel like it's just a monumental mistake for him to stay. I think you even saw in a press conference, Ten Hag looked a little bit ruffled when he talked about it. He was saying, look, it's up to him. He can choose to fight, or if he doesn't want to fight, he should go. But at the same time, Ten Hag lies. He's a habitual liar. He's lied so many times.
Habitual land stuff.
Exactly. In press conferences, talking about Ronaldo's my guy. He's going to score goals for us. De Gea is the best goalie in the world. He'll be here next season. And they're out of here. And he's doing it with Maguire. now I'm at a position and a point where I can tell when our manager's lying. He's lying. Your time's up. You need to go. Just do that, please. It's the best for everyone. I'm begging you, mate. You should take the transfer to West Ham. You're not going to get a chance to kind of like maintain your England place. A better chance than this, because I'm telling you right now, the centre backs we've got, it might have been dire straits in the last couple of years, but it won't be in this next 6 to 12, 18 months. You've got Tomori playing better and better. You've got Colwell, who's going to play week in, week out for Chelsea. You've got the existing players already. If you see Ben White play centre-back now, he's going to be there as well. I know he might have beef with Southgate, but if he plays well enough, he'll still get in there. You've got other players in that centre-back position that are going to play week in, week out, and you're not going to be able to hold on to this "I've done it for Southgate" excuse that you've had before, because he's going to have so much pressure on him to pick players who are playing well for those big clubs that those guys play for, that you're not going to be able to withstand this. And 1 year, maybe.
And his England career is all he's
2
got
years
left.
now.
So the England career and, his success with England is all he's really got left in his legacy of, in a positive sense. So for that reason, just move to West Ham, get them relegated like you probably will, and then let's keep it moving, all right? Let's keep it moving, lad.
That could happen.
Back in the Championship where he belongs.
But yeah, anyway, that's. I wasn't expecting my rant to be actually like a bigger rant than yours, but now it makes yours look like a bloody children's rant. Yeah, but yeah, I had to get that off my chest because that's obviously the big breaking news of the day in the last few days, and yeah, I'm pleading with you, mate. If there's any chance in the world that you see this, I'm begging you, man, don't watch the other 15 minutes of this pod. Just watch this. Go. I'll drive you, and I don't even have a license yet, but I'll flip and risk it all to drive you I'll go to Manny and back and bring you with me to Stratford. But yeah, it's the best decision, man. I'm telling you. Oh God. Anyway, that has been the pod this week, Johns. Thanks for jumping on, man. Let's hope our teams do better this week in terms of performances. Yeah. And I'm sure you'd be very grateful if we were able to bat up Spurs, knowing your love for them.
Yeah.
And hopefully you guys beat Palace as well. But yeah, thanks for coming on, man.
No worries, mate. It's always a pleasure. This was a particularly funny one. I might have to get a tissue or two and wipe my tears away from the laughing, crying that I've been doing as you've been getting onto Maguire. Oh, cheers,
absolute
mate.
Pain.
That's cheered me up.
Thanks for that. And yeah, if you're listening on audio-only platforms, please make sure to follow the podcast. Leave a 5-star review if you're listening on Spotify. That will be really, really helpful. We're trying to grow the podcast. Obviously, like we say every week, we're trying to grow. And that will definitely help us. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Share it with your friends if you've found my Harry Maguire rant particularly entertaining. I'm sure there are people out there that will enjoy it. I know my group chats are going to be flying off the wall as soon as we publish this. So, yeah, help us with the engagement. It'll be super, super helpful. And, yeah, take care. See you guys next week.
Cheers, folks.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.